announced by the Prime Minister. And this will do for India's nuclear power sector what liberalization did for the Indian economy in 1991. In one of the most significant policy shifts, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated private sector participation in India's nuclear energy program while inaugurating Skyroot's Infinity campus in Hyderabad via video conferencing. The initiative aims to develop Bharat's small reactors, advanced modular reactors and foster nuclear innovation as part of India's strategy to strengthen energy security and diversify its energy mix. Now viewers, the Prime Minister's policy reset has come, and this is what he said: small desi modular reactors may be made by private sector soon. He goes on to say the discussion highlights that this move follows the opening of the space sector and will require a new policy framework, including potential amendments to the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act. Now viewers, FDI in a strategic sector and one as sensitive as nuclear will raise eyebrows. Many will say that nuclear liability clauses will be waived. What are nuclear liability clauses? Loosely viewers, these are expectations that are levied on companies that are going to be producing nuclear energy in the country to basically be accountable for any mishap. We've had a problem with Dow Chemicals, the Bhopal gas tragedy. They almost walked away without any liability, but there is a liability clause. Now here's a quick look at the global landscape. Viewers, in America, world's #1 nuclear producer, 30% of global output, 80% of the production is in private hands. In China, 16% global share, obviously zero privately, completely privately, there's no 0% private, entirely state control. France, #3, 14% global share, almost 100% state-owned. Russia also has almost 100% state control, Rosatom. And of course, there's Korea, South Korea, 7% of global share, nearly 100% state-owned. So we are making a big allowance. We are going the America way. Let's ask some fundamental questions. I'm joined by Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, former member of the NSAB. And I want to ask you, sir, India has always guarded its nuclear generation as a strategic domain. Now, with FDI on the table, what concrete safeguards ensure that foreign equity cannot influence operational decisions or strategic policy, sir?
Thank you for having me on your show. A couple of things on this. There are a number of sectors which are held as a strategic for quite some time now. Some time back, of course, we opened the space sector. At the moment, we are trying to open the nuclear sector. So why this is happening is, there are 2-3 things. One is when we are going into the production of semiconductors, etc., you need a high fidelity kind of electricity that needs to be given to those companies. And in a grid, it may be difficult to achieve that. So therefore, if you put small modular reactors, that becomes that much easier. That is one point. The second point is on the environmental issues, we have committed that we will become carbon neutral by 2017. So to achieve that, you need to increase the other modalities of power supply. One is, of course, the hydroelectric power. The other one is, of course, wind power, wind-generated power. And third one is the nuclear power. So this is another aspect that I think we need to keep in mind. Without the private participation, I think this may be very difficult to achieve because intergovernmental issues have got other issues, and the technology is difficult to come by. And so if you open the private sector, it will come up. So if you look at the statement, there is also another statement which he made to say that bigger projects, bigger nuclear reactors can be done in collaboration with NPCIL. There is the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited.
Yeah.
So if you put all this together, I think this sector is going to be opened up and it is going to be good for us.
Okay.
Is what I'm getting to.
So let me bring in. Okay, so let me bring in Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Mr. Mitra, emphasis nowadays has been on Swadeshi. So will this move actually reduce our dependence on foreign suppliers or risk creating a new long-term sort of strategic vulnerability, the kind that we've had to face with imports of weapons and this, that, the other, because we haven't really gone and developed our own?
I think what is being done here is, look, big reactors are fantastic for, parts of India that can get supplied by sea and things like that. In the hinterland, in the northeast and things like that, you need smaller, almost truck portable reactors and things like. Sure, we're talking about very large trucks transporting very large things, but you need that. You need, where cities are smaller, you need smaller capacities. This is actually going to expand our global supply footprint, because you start acquiring different kinds of uranium and things like that from different places. Number one, what it does is, right now we're looking at a crunch of economies of scale. We've got large reactors. We need a significant expansion of our nuclear program, and that is where they're bringing in the private sector right now. So small reactors which are easily exportable to African countries, South American countries, etc., which would have much more limited requirements and much more limited budgets. And we know the private sector always does these things better. International aid, they opened up Africa for us, they opened up South America for us, and things like that. It dovetails perfectly into foreign policy. Curiously, it makes us more dependent on external supplies because we don't have uranium at home, domestic uranium. But that's perfectly fine. Remember, people tend to think dependence is a one-way street. It isn't. It's a two-way street. We also need to remember this is cutting-edge tech. If you can get the sub-components right now, so for example, the dome shield, there is only one company in the world that makes it. That is Toshiba Heavy Electric in Japan. Nobody else makes it for a Western reactor. Even the French reactors and the American reactors get there. Toshiba or Mitsubishi, I forget who. It only comes from there. If you generate economies of scale, you can quite possibly, at that point, start generating those economies of scale to start manufacturing those things here.
Okay.
So it is a strategic investment. It's a good investment.
Okay, just stay on with me, because General Narasimhan, we were talking about India's civil nuclear liability regime. Now, this was a hard-won concession, and it went through Parliament, and all the rigmarole. It's very stringent. With FDI entering, is it possible that India's hard-won liability protections will be diluted to make it more attractive for investors?
Hardware liability protection is a different issue. At the moment, we need to wait and watch as to how this policy rolls out. In fact, the Prime Minister's statement said they're thinking of doing it. So when the policy comes out, then we'll have to wait and see as to how that aspect is taken care of when it comes up.
Okay. So Ayyar Mitra, on that point, what do you think? What's your view on this? Because it became hugely controversial. You remember the Kundakulam protests and this, that, the other, and the 123 agreement, and it went through a huge combative phase.
Look, we're a big country. We're not the size of France. We're not the size of South Korea. We're not the size of Japan. America has at least 3 different producers of nuclear reactors. We are 3-4 times the size of America in terms of our population, in terms of our energy need. You have to give it to the private sector. It creates redundancies. Having 3-4 different kinds of reactors with 4 different kinds of uranium processes, with 3-4 different, each having 3-4 different supply countries, makes a huge difference. You need it for redundancy. It is good. It doesn't matter what the paperwork and the...
No, but public safety?
Public safety, nuclear is one of the safest forms of energy. People, ever since Fukushima, people tend to doubt this. But during Fukushima, 50 kilometers away, there was another reactor where people actually went and took refuge inside that reactor. Okay. Fukushima, Chernobyl, and things like that have, unfortunately, these were all compounded human errors. Remember, in India, we have never had this. This is not to say we will.
I hope but that remains.
It is one of the safest and cheapest forms of energy around.
Okay, well, viewers, we'll have to read the fine print, and this bill is going to come up in the winter session, so it'll be fascinating to look at it. It's an important leap forward. It could also help us attain, as General Narasimhan was saying, our climate goals. So it's very important. I'll leave it at this, viewers. Lots more coming up on The Vantage with Palki Sharma.